Get ready to rock for Wednesday night baseball. It's a slugfest in Cleveland when the high-powered Tribe look to stop the smoking bats of the Rangers, who've scored 28 runs in the last 2 games. Also, the A's won a laugher yesterday, but the Sox with Nomar and the sizzling Brian Dahlbach still lead the AL wild card. Later, Mike Piazza and the Mets, who need a win to take a full-game lead over Atlanta, square off in a rubber match with Tony Gwynn and the Padres. And Sammy Sosa, he and the Cubs look to avoid being swept by the Arizona Diamondbacks. Coming up, most of you will see Pudge Rodriguez and the Rangers take on Cleveland. Pudge is hitting .522 against Cleveland this year, while some of you will see Oakland battle Boston. The A's trail the Red Sox by 1 game in the wild card race. Hi, everybody. Bill Pito in the studio. It is great to have you with us. Later on, the Mets will battle San Diego, and the Mets have a half-game lead now on Atlanta because the Braves taking on Colorado this afternoon. Bottom 9 tied at 1. 2 on for Larry Walker, his 2nd homer of the game, 32nd of the year, and Colorado beats the Braves by the final score of 4-1. Houston and Cincy are tied for first in the Central. Reds and Pittsburgh underway. Dimitri Young drives in Mike Cameron, and that ties the game up at 1, and that's where we are right now. Reds still batting in the bottom of the 1st. American League today, Mariners, Blue Jays, top 2nd, no score, 1 on. This is Jay Buhner against David Wells. Looky here. That's a 2-run home run, his 11th of the year. Seattle led 2-0, and the Mariners go on to win 5-1. So Toronto has now lost 7 straight, their longest losing streak of the season. Toronto now 3 games behind Boston in the wild card race. Elsewhere, Tampa Bay underway at Detroit. KC about to start at the Yankees. Same goes for Minnesota at Baltimore, Oakland, Boston, Texas, Cleveland, and also on the schedule tonight, Anaheim at Chicago. In total tonight, there are 12 games. We'll keep you posted on everything. In the meantime, we're ready for baseball. Most of you will see Cleveland and Texas. The rest, Oakland and Boston. Enjoy the games, everybody.
2 of the 3 division leaders in the American League will square off. The AL West leading Texas Rangers against the AL Central front-running Cleveland Indians. The AL West, the Rangers have to keep looking over their shoulder at one of the great stories this year, the Oakland A's, 5.5 back, who are playing at Boston tonight. And, of course, we shall keep you posted. But the race within a race is who is going to end up with the best record in the American League. The Yankees, Indians, Rangers all feel they can have the best record and, therefore, have home field advantage, which, if it works out for them, would go all the way to the World Series. But we're only mid-August. Still, you got to talk that way. Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Berman. Welcome to Wednesday Night Baseball. And I tell you what, welcome to Cleveland for the Texas Rangers, because the hurting that they put on the Indians the first 2 games of this 4-game series is almost unconscionable. It seems a long time ago that Cleveland led 5-2 in the 6th inning on Monday night. But the Rangers winning both games, running away by a combined score of 28-9, out-homering the Indians 8-1. Pudge Rodriguez has been a one-man wrecking crew, but he's not been alone. Wow. Working with me tonight is a guy that, oh my goodness, there's some hitting there. I better bear down. There's Rick Sutcliffe, and I got to say, I'm usually working with Ray Knight or Buck Martinez or Joe Morgan. He's taller than me. There you go. You learn very quickly. Well, what have the Rangers learned? I mean, you can't expect to get 12 runs every night, or do they have to go that way?
Well, they know they're going to have to out-hit the Cleveland Indians. They're not going to out-pitch them. They're certainly not going to play better defense. And it was Pudge Rodriguez in his first at-bat in the first game of the series that hit a home run to get that offense going. They've been touching home plate ever since.
Charlie Nagy is not one of the names, Rick, that you might say, okay, here's the ace of his staffer. We need him to win a big game, but yet he gets the ball for Cleveland. Mike Hargrove feels very good about it. What's his game plan, both for him on the mound and for the team tonight?
Well, he's under the weather a little bit. The flu's been going around. It might possibly be these upset stomachs coming from all the offense from the Texas Rangers. But he is their leader. He's a guy that they can count on for innings. He's led the club in wins the last 4 years, going for his 14th tonight. They're hoping to get him deep into the ball game because that bullpen is hurting right now.
Well, he knows what kind of lineup he faces. The Nextel lineup for Johnny Quaker Oates and the Texas Rangers looks this way. Mark McLemore swinging a good bat in the leadoff spot at second base. Pudge Rodriguez, we'll talk about him all game long. One of the best seasons a catcher has ever had. He hit second. Rusty Greer is in left. Juan Going Gonzalez is in right field hitting cleanup. And he, against Charlie Nagy, has hit 5 lifetime homers in 45 at-bats. Remember that. Rafael Emerson Lake and Palmero is the DH tonight. Todd Good Housekeeping Seal is at third. Lee Cat Stevens at first base hitting 7th. Roy Cerrone Clayton, the one-time San Francisco treat, is shortstop. Tom Goodwin in center field. against the right-handed and all-star this year for the 3rd time in his career, Charlie Nagy from Fairfield, Connecticut. He's a Nutmeg State guy.
You can't forget those hometown boys, can you? He's a gamer. He always has been from Mike Hargrove. He's a guy they can count on, as the Atlanta Braves say, to go to the post.
So Nagy trying to quell this Texas Express, which has been exactly that, the Express. I don't even think it stops to gas up or anything. What they have done in here is absolutely amazing. And remember, you add on the 10 runs that they scored against the White Sox on Sunday and another win. You add it all up, and in 3 games, they've scored 38 runs. Of course, you can't expect to do that all the time, but as you point out in the open, Rick, you know, Texas, Cleveland, the only team with more runs than Texas, than the Indians. So dig in. If you're going anywhere in a hurry tonight, this might not be a game for you. Pudge Rodriguez on deck. 28 home runs and 21 stolen bases. No catcher has ever done that before in the history of the major leagues. Little chopper. And not making the play is Robbie Alomar. McLemore runs pretty well, not mercurial, but that had a tough play written all over it from the start, and it should be a hit. We'll give you the official word.
McLemore has had some leg operations the last couple of years, but he says he feels better right now than since any time since 1996. He hits the high chopper right here. This is as good a defense up the middle as you're ever going to find, particularly when they're healthy. You got Sandy Alomar behind home plate, and you got Kenny Lofton in center field. Those 2 guys highlighted right there up the middle. It does not get any better than that.
We have Dave Roberts tonight as Lofton continued to be bothered by the hamstring, and then he fouled a pitch on Saturday off of his instep. And of course, Sandy Alomar, they expect him back soon. He hadn't been here since early May. Here is perhaps the MVP of the league, although Cleveland has a couple of candidates, and there are a couple in New York. We don't mean to close it out this way, but when you're a catcher and you put numbers like this on August 18th, 28 homers, 85 RBIs, and you're by far and away the best defensive catcher in baseball, and your enthusiasm is so infectious as it is in the clubhouse, as Pudge hits one to center field, Roberts went back, now comes in and makes the play. But you know what a catcher like this can mean to everybody on the team, not only the pitchers.
Yeah, Johnny Oates was telling me before the game that he doesn't think it's fair to consider what offensive numbers a catcher or a middle infielder puts up against a designated hitter or even an outfielder. He said the grind that they take on a daily basis, how important they are to the defense, just makes it more important what they do. Their offensive numbers should be altered a little bit to catch up to the guys that don't have to do as much.
This is Rusty Greer, a throwback type ball player, gritty. You know him in left field, making circus catch after circus catch. And one thing that he does is, ever since he came into prominence a few years ago when the Rangers won the West in '96, seems that he has a better second half than first half. He's one that doesn't wilt in that ridiculous Texas heat. And I'm not knocking the players who do, because Johnny Oates told us before the game, you know, we had 14 straight days of over 100 degrees. It's always hot in Texas, but this was worse. And then when they went elsewhere in the country for the, quote, road game to the cooler climes, it was 95. So this was a tired ball club, but boy, have they found their sea legs here in Cleveland, inside the Greer.
Well, he said that they also got into Chicago late that night. They had to play a doubleheader there, and it just seemed like it took them a couple of days to catch their breath. Well, boy, their sails were full when they got to Cleveland.
One thing we keep our eye on, I mean, that flu that seems to be going around where Greer past Tomey, who had to hold the runner McLemore. Ramirez has a good arm, but it's going to be cut off, and McLemore to third, and runners at the corners, and a good piece of hitting for Rusty Greer. And now the proverbial ducks are on the pond for a man that can make a few ducks fly, and that's Juan Gonzalez.
Well, Juan Gonzalez should split part of his paycheck with Rusty Greer, because he's so important to the RBI total that Gonzalez has been able to put up. Right there, Greer knew all along he was going to try to pull the baseball. With only one out, You get a base hit to left field, McLemore cannot get to third. You get one to right field, now he can get to third, and it does not take a base hit to score the first run of the game.
Juan Gonzalez, who last year won his second MVP award by driving in 157 runs, the highest total in the American League since 1949. This year, Gonzalez, if he can just hit a fly ball to bring in the one run, he'll have an even 100.
Both of the base hits that Nagy has given up have been of the ground ball variety. He needs a ground ball right here to get out of this inning without any runs scored. Plus, we talked about him not being at 100% tonight. He needs to get back to that bench.
Inside to Gonzalez. 1-1.
We said
more third. Go ahead.
Boomer, we sat down with Mike Hargrove before the game, and he knows that Charles Nagy's not missed a start in 5 years. He knew that regardless of what his temperature was, this youngster was going to be on the mound for him, as always.
I think Charlie likes to be called a youngster. 31, he's still young. Made the All-Star team, and you know what? He was the guy, there's a veteran pitcher who has been to an All-Star game before that the manager has to keep in his pocket in case he goes to extra innings. Joe Torre explained it to him. He said, that's fine. Let the guys that haven't pitched here before go first. So that's why he did not actually pitch in the All-Star game, because you never know. They go 15 innings. Tried to work outside corner, but got it a little low. And we're 3-1 with Gonzalez, with the, dare I say, equally dangerous, certainly this year, Rafael Palmeiro on deck. Of course, you know, this Cleveland knows who they're pitching to, because it's almost the same thing. It's Cleveland, Texas. It's really the same sort of ball club in so many ways in the MASH department. Full count.
One thing Charles Nagy does know in this situation, Juan Gonzalez cannot drive in a run unless he swings the bat. The base on balls will load the bases for Rafael Palmeiro, but a lot of cleanup hitters in this situation will get selfish. They'll expand that zone trying to pick up the RBI for themselves when it's not always the best thing in the interest of the ball club.
George. Can they turn it? Alomar tries to turn. The throw is wide as Baerga playing third base, and that's a story in itself. I mean, he hasn't really played that much third in recent years. I'm not saying that was a simple ball to go around the horn, although it certainly could have been done.
No, but right about now, Charles Nagy's wondering how soon Travis Fryman's going to be back on the field. He's got the range of a shortstop. He would have gotten to this ball a little bit quicker, and Alomar would have had time to have stepped towards first base and made a stronger throw. Instead of the fact that Baerga went back on the ball, he knew Greer was going to be on top of him. He had to go to left field. No chance for the double play.
So as we mentioned, that if he could get one run in, that would give him an even 100 ribbies on the year for Juan Gonzalez, which he now has. 2 out. Gonzalez at first, and Rafael Palmeiro, who has come home to Texas as Baerga has come home to Cleveland. We'll talk about that in a moment, but Palmeiro was welcomed so warmly in the Texas home opener and all the early series. It was like one of their favorites had come back, and he's rewarded the fans with a 105 RBI season here in mid-August, 32 homers and hitting at .336. He's had a big-time year.
Well, he was happy in Baltimore, but he told us that he didn't think that team was going in the right direction.
He was right. This ball is going in the right direction. Is Dave Roberts there? Yes, he is. It hung up a little long, and so Nagy was on the ropes a little bit, but the veteran that he is, he wriggles out, giving up only 1 run, which is a win if you're Cleveland, considering what Texas has done. First inning, and the Rangers are only on a 9-run pace this game, and I think Cleveland would take it after the mashing that Texas did the first 2 nights. Oh, by the way, the Cleveland Indians have a pretty good lineup themselves. Mike Hargrove's Nextel lineup has, while Kenny Lofton still convalesces, if you will, although he is here and certainly not on the DL, but Dave Roberts is in center field. One-time Tiger. Omar Vizquel having another fine and his best offensive year, and you know what the defense is, hitting second. Roberto, remember the Alomar. New life for him this year. Having fun again. You see that smile, hitting third. Manny Ramirez, who is this year's Juan Gonzalez, leads the majors with 122 RBIs and is about on a pace with Gonzalez's last year, maybe even a little ahead of him. David Chief Justice in left field. Jim Thome, can you hear me, is at first base. Richie Sexton is the DH. Welcome home to Carlos Baerga, who homered here last night. Einar Diaz catches while Sandy Alomar convalesces, and they will be going up against the one-time 22-game winner, albeit that was back in '93 for the San Francisco Giants. Hails from not far from here, outside the Pittsburgh area in Pennsylvania, John Charcoal Burkett.
34-year-old right-hander, 3-6 on the year, a high ERA. Once again, his ERA has risen the last 3 years because the velocity on his fastball has gone down. Boomer, it's almost like the fastball and changeup are twins right now. At Burkett's age, he probably can't add anything to that fastball. He simply needs to reduce off that changeup.
This is Dave Roberts, 27 years of age, acquired from Detroit in the middle of last season. And he tries to lay it out a bunt a la Lofton. Burkett bowls one over to Lee Stevens, and the reason we mention that is he's a accomplished bowler. It looked like Roberts almost beat that out. It's a good move just to try it right away.
You know, it wasn't a good bunt at all. On the first pitch of the ball game, Roberts would like to pull this thing down the line. He knows that he can beat Burkett to the bag. Instead, he bunts it right back to the pitcher. Burkett, not known as a very good fielding pitcher, just gets him by a half step.
Omar Vizquel hitting at .340. Yeah, he motored. Not everybody's Kenny Lofton, however. The last few years, he's playing in Cleveland. Omar Vizquel has been a different offensive player. He's always had the great glove, of course. 288 last year, 280 the year before, 297 the year before that, but 340?
Well, I tell you what, you can't pitch him on the inner half of the plate anymore. When he first got to the big leagues, you could just pound him on the inner half. You come in there once too many times, he can take you deep in there now.
Hits this one to right center field, and it's a base hit. Gonzalez up with it and throws it in, and that'll bring up Roberto Alomar. Here's the way Texas lines up defensively, Rick.
Goodwin in center, terrific speed out there. Gonzalez finally healthy enough to play right field, which means Rafael Palmeiro can DH. A reliable Rusty Greer, and as almost always, Pudge Rodriguez behind home plate. He's going to catch 150 games. He's just a lethal weapon behind there. Vizquel would like to run right now. If he does, it'll probably be of the hit and run variety.
Todd Zeal in a couple of steps on the grass. Alomar does not show bunt and takes a strike from Laz Diaz, the plate umpire tonight. Veteran Richie Garcia, one of the who we think is one of the best in the business. More on that later. Is at first base. Jim Reynolds at second. Brian O'Nora at third base. We had Cleveland in their opening series at Anaheim, Rick, and you could see immediately in the face of Robbie Alomar, fun. And that's the guy we've always known at Toronto. I knew him when he was a Padre. So I didn't see that fun in him the last couple of years. And it's back, and it showed.
Well, Mike Hargrove put a lot of confidence in him right off the bat in spring training. He says, you're going to hit in that third spot. I've got 3 guys at the top of the lineup that possibly combined could score 400 runs, especially with Manny Ramirez sitting in that cleanup spot.
Took a little off that, although Burkett is not a fast fastball pitcher. Both Nagy and Burkett in the upper 80s. Burkett about 86-ish. Nagy maybe a mile an hour or 2 more than that. Not by much, but a little bit, huh? There goes the base runner and Pudge. Well, nobody was looking for it. Got a good jump as it was, but Pudge is saying, you know, I can only put the throw over there. Wow.
Something happened up the middle right there.
Yeah.
Royce Clayton is the captain of the infield. He's supposed to give Mark McLemore a sign as to who's going to cover on a certain pitch. Well, obviously the sign got confused. McLemore was the closest to getting to the bag, so I would imagine he was the guy that missed the sign.
Only the 25th stolen base on Pudge Rodriguez all year. And on that subject, talking with Oatsy, Johnny Oates, before the game, he said, no, I'm not making excuses or anything. He says, but really, there have only been about 10 where Pudge has had a chance. Like 14, just to pick a number, of those 24. Now, maybe, you know, over half of the ones stolen on him, he had no shot at all.
Pitcher just simply too slow to home plate.
Exactly. Breaking ball fouled off by Alomar. Count remains at 2-2. Robbie has scored 102 runs, which is the most in the American League. Bagwell has more in the National League. He could score 140, 150, maybe. I know we just have 6 weeks to go. That seems high, but what a run. Ooh. High and maybe a little bit outside the strike zone, but Alomar took a whack at it. He will sit. Manny Ramirez coming up. But don't tell me, Bill Pito, we have a situation developing.
Indeed, Chris, a developing situation as Midas takes us to Cincinnati for the former Indian Brian Giles, his first year with Pittsburgh. Having a great year. 2 on, a 3-run home run, his 26th of the year. Reds come in tied with Houston for first place. Right now they trail, Chris, 5-2.
Pittsburgh can be pesky, and they have some pitching at times. Thank you, Billy. Look forward to your updates all evening long. Always a pleasure when we get to work together, even though it's not quite in the same studio, but we'll call it the same studio tonight. Manny Ramirez has been in the proper studio all year. Look at the 2 different pitches that Alomar struck out on, and then that pitch to Manny Ramirez. If he can have that much of a variety in pitching tonight, Burkett may be okay.
What he was able to do with Alomar was establish that fastball in to begin with. Then he tried to backdoor the breaking ball. He got Alomar to wait back a little bit, and he snuck that 87-mile-an-hour fastball up and away by him.
Well, let's look at it. Here it is.
It's just a simple fastball, the 4-seamer. You can see right there. Look at Pudge Rodriguez saying, I know Alomar better than you do. I want the fastball up. He got it. Here he comes back with the off-speed pitch, and he catches Ramirez looking for the first pitch fastball.
Grip, but foul. Well, you know better than I that if John Burkett is going to be successful, and when he was with the Giants, sinker, pretty good. I wouldn't say great movement, but pretty darn good control so he could spot things. He's not quite been to that form often this year.
He's got to pitch down in the zone. He's got to let his defense work for him. He's one of those guys. At this point in his career, though, Boomer, it's real tough for him to get 4 or 5 outs an inning. An error can really make it hard for him to finish the game or even get through 5.
Ramirez gets under it to short right field. Gonzalez there. And the Indians are gone. No, wait a minute. We played an inning and it's only 1-0. I don't get this. That's why we have 8 more at least. I think the Rangers lead the Indians 1-0. And we've got football for you tomorrow on ESPN. We begin with the NFL tonight at 7:30. Join us, and whoever that guy is, for 45 minutes to get you set on everything in the league. And then Mike Holmgren's new address, the Seattle Seahawks. Steve Young and the Niners at Candlestick. That's our game at 8:15 Eastern. The Seahawks, who will make the playoffs this year. That's an early Swami call. They haven't made the playoffs since '88. And the San Francisco 49ers, perennial Super Bowl contender. 32 years young Charles Nagy will work to Todd Zeal, Lee Stevens, and Royce Clayton. 6, 7, 8 for the Texas Rangers. You talked at the beginning about Nagy and his consistency. Since '94, only Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, Randy Johnson, Pedro Martinez, Mike Mussina, all names who you would think of as big-time pitchers, they're the only ones with more wins than Nagy since '94.
You know why you don't think of Nagy? Because he's not a very good self-promoter. You know, a lot of guys will talk about themselves. They'll do things to bring attention to them. All Charles Nagy does is simply involve himself in the community. Just yesterday, he was at a banquet for the Boys and Girls Club, handed out 100 trophies to kids. Just a wonderful, wonderful person. He wasn't feeling well yesterday, but he wanted to be in that situation, to be with those kids. He wanted to be on the mound tonight. And you know one thing, Mike Hargrove appreciates having people like that.
And he gets Zeal swinging for the first out of the inning.
This is a good slider from Charles Nagy, a pitch that has given Todd Zeal problems throughout his career. Nice downward tilt right there. He set it up with a fastball on the inner half. Good extension right there on the part of Nagy, but I'm a little bit surprised, Boomer. The first time around in the lineup, somebody didn't try to lay down a bunt. Nagy's under the weather. They know that. Texas was talking about it. You got to make this guy break a sweat.
Here's one of the unsung but important players on this Texas team. This is the lineup that they want. Lee Stevens at first. I know Paul Merrill is a really good defensive first baseman, but his knees have been killing him, especially since he tried to play some more first recently. Stevens, Ramirez over nicely on a ball that could have scooted to the wall. But Stevens has been a huge find since he played a couple of years in Japan. And he's been a big part of this ball club, not only this year, but since they found him in '96.
He said it's real easy for him to get motivated because every time I take the field, it's against a ball club that turned me down. He went over to Japan. He wanted to play for anybody, nobody, but the Texas Rangers wanted him.
Royce Clayton, the shortstop, shows bunt, pulls it back, and takes the pitch for a strike. Clayton and tonight's starter, John Burkett, were pivotal members of the 1993 San Francisco Giants team that won 103 games but lost the NL West by 1. Clayton, young shortstop. Burkett, a 22-game winner that year. 6 years ago for Dusty Baker, and hit Dusty's first. Pitches inside. Royce, after a horrible April, has really picked up his average to 267. I mean, he was Mendoza. We had them at the end of April against the Yankees. He was Mendoza line, maybe even under it. So for him to come up from that point for a whole month when it was awful to 267 shows that he's been hitting over 300 for the last couple of months.
Tony Gwynn a couple of times has talked about Royce Clayton, saying that if he ever gets his front foot down, if he gets that front foot comfortable, he gets in a hitting position, he said this guy with his speed will hit 320, 330. It's something that Clayton works on a daily basis, just has not put it together yet.
This should be tailor-made. Vizquel, Alomar, Tomey. They don't lay it out there to that double play combination and expect a miscue. Nagy induces a double play ball. It's 1-0 Texas. Welcome back to Cleveland. I love that. Charlie Nagy talking with the Clarence Jones, who's one of the hitting. He's not the hitting coach, but
was with the Atlanta Braves.
Just in case what? He has to come up to the plate tonight?
Well, I don't think he's worried about that, although Nagy's a pretty good athlete.
Here's something that when you look at the Cleveland Indians and you wonder how they're going to do this fall, because let me go out on a limb, they're going to win the division. Against teams over 500, they're 22-23. They've beaten up on the teams that they're supposed to beat up on, but they have not taken care of business against teams like Texas, against whom they're 2-4.
Well, a lot of times it's because the opposition, when they're over 500, Boomer, they've got a #1 starter. As of right now, nobody considers the Cleveland Indians to have one. They think Bartolo Colon could possibly be. I know a lot of people out there that would take Charles Nagy and his 15 wins every year.
David Justice, Jim Thome, Richie Sexson, 5, 6, 7 in the Cleveland lineup to face John Burkett. David hitting at an even 300 for the season.
I would expect that average to continue to climb until the next injury comes up for Dave Justice. He says he feels terrific right now, and when he's healthy, he has always produced.
Breaking ball misses outside. 2-1. Justice has touched Burkett for 4 homers. Remember, they faced each other often. Braves versus Giants in the earlier 90s. In the air to left field. Back to the wall is Greer, and he reaches up and makes the catch. Not quite enough juice. Justice certainly has power enough to get it over that wall, but not quite enough on that one, and there's one out in the second.
Wilbur, Justice used to have one of the prettiest swings in all of baseball, but injuries have changed his swing a little bit. He doesn't have as big a leg kick as he once had. He is not able to get the bat back as far to start his swing with as he once used to be able to do. Just shoulder injuries have kept him from getting there. Possibly the reason that ball stayed in the park.
A little bit low to Jim Thome. Now, Thome is one, and I only look really at the veteran pitchers, of which there's a lot of reps or a lot of at-bats against. Thome 2 of 13 lifetime against Burkett, and that would make sense. Maybe a ball down low and in, and that would add up, wouldn't it?
Real good off-speed curveball.
Right.
Never given in to him. Here the count's 3-0. Normally Thome will expand the zone. Burkett, being a veteran, he knows that. He's not going to give him anything in the strike zone if he doesn't have to.
Rip. Lee Stevens has time to flip it to Burkett. 2 up, 2 down here in the Cleveland second.
This is when Burkett's at his best right here. Even with the count 3-0, watch him take a little bit off this 2-seam sinking fastball right here. He's not going to give in. Look at the little bit of downward movement. A lack of velocity, just enough to get Thome out in front and keep him on the ground.
That'll bring up the designated hitter, young Richie Sexson. No, I will not give him a nickname because there's just too many directions to go. Most of which, even though we're cable, I'll just take the pitch first.
You're a happily married man, too. You don't want to get in any trouble.
Base hit. Doesn't need a nickname. Just needs a hit. Sexton, a 2-out single to left. Giving Cleveland their second base runner of the night. And now a chance to tell the story of the return home of the one-time prodigal son. And a warm ovation for Carlos. 1 if by land, 2 if by sea, 3 if by Baerga. He was among the leaders of the resurgence of the Cleveland Indians. Way back in the days, the final years of a stadium you knew, and I don't know if you loved, Municipal Stadium. And
at the time I did.
Yep. He and Sandy Alomar, Lofton and Bell were on the team that came from the depths and then got to the World Series in '95. He was 4 straight years. The lowest batting average he had was .312. Many years, .330, .340. Had some good power. And then John Hart and the Indians were ahead of the curve in seeing that his skills or whatever was happening in '96 was not the Baerga that they had seen and the fans had gotten to love. They sent him in that big trade to the Mets involving Alvaro Espinosa, so there was the infielder Kent and Vizcaíno. And then the Mets, and that didn't really work out. And this year he bounced around with St. Louis and Cincinnati, played a little bit for the Padres. When he cleared waivers on Monday, Cleveland said, come on back. We need to spell Enrique Wilson at third base, who's spelling Travis Fryman. And the ovation he got here Monday night said just about brought tears to his eyes. He had 2 hits, had a homer yesterday, so he's 3 for 8 as a Cleveland Indian second time around. And he draws a base on balls. And he was really light. He never did anything to annoy the fans here, that's for sure. I mean, that was not any falling out like maybe Albert Bell might have had some incidents. Might have, he did. He was beloved here. And he's just so happy to be back. says it's like the old days. When I came over as a kid from San Diego in a trade years ago, I was a third baseman. Now here I am playing third base coming over from San Diego.
Well, a big part of the reason they got rid of him as well was because he would not switch from second base to third base when they wanted to bring Robbie Alomar over here once before. That made John Hart mad. Then the lack of production gave him the opportunity to simply send him to the Mets.
This is Einar Diaz, who has had to catch the bulk of the time, and Sandy Alomar has been out since mid-May. Done a pretty good job, Rick.
Likes anything on the inner half of the plate. Not a good breaking ball hitter, but Burkett not able to get that curveball over thus far in the early part of the game.
Hitting .329 with runners in scoring position, with Sexton is at second. So a seemingly innocuous inning with Burkett retiring the two tough hitters on paper, Justice and Tomey. Now 2 on and a hitter's count to Diaz, 2-0. Kind of a floater. That one kind of floated all around, didn't it?
Well, like you said, this is the part of the lineup where Burkett should be using his fastball. He's not. He's throwing off-speed pitches to both Baerga and now Diaz. The next thing you know, you're going to be back to the top of the lineup where they can do some big-time damage.
That was a fastball, but it missed outside. So all of a sudden, with 2 out and none on, the Indians have bases loaded for the top of the order. Now it is Dave Roberts and not Kenny Lofton. But then you know who's coming. Vizquel and Alomar and Ramirez and Justice. This inning, 14 balls, 4 strikes for Berkey.
Well, the biggest difference in Kenny Lofton and Dave Roberts is the fact that Kenny Lofton can slow moments like this down. He can stay focused. A youngster like Roberts, even though he's 27, I say young in experience here at the big league level, this crowd gets excited, he's going to get excited, and he'll get a little bit more aggressive than he would be with nobody on base.
In there for a strike. Roberts was actually born in Okinawa, Japan, but he grew up in Southern California, Oceanside, one of our favorite areas of the country, North County, San Diego, right? You and I can both wax about that one. Breaking pitch that Roberts swings through, and now Burkett's ahead 0-2. Roberts played ball at UCLA and got a degree in history. Like that, made sure to get his degree afterwards. He went back and made sure he got it, which is always good to see. Now he'd like to get his degree and a little flair to score 2 runs.
Never really got the opportunity to play at the major league level much, even though he's got a lifetime .301 batting average at the minor league level.
Off the fist in the infield. Stevens calls everybody away, and Burkett wriggles free of a bases-loaded jam. We've played a pair at the Jake. 1-0 Texas. Stick around. Top of the 3rd inning and a nice night. All right, it's a little bit humid, but my goodness, when you give us temperatures in the low 70s today, Cleveland, maybe mid-70s. Now it's, you know, be in the 60s here during the high 60s for the game. After what the country has been through all summer long, I could take this any day of the week. Tom Goodwin, the number 9 batter for Texas, shows bunt and pulls it back. Takes it for a ball.
We keep looking for signs from Charles Nagy to show the illness that he's had the last 24 hours. I think this weather has helped him a lot as well.
No question. Well, is this town hepped up for sports these days, or what? The Browns are in their first game in their new stadium on Saturday. They had 20,000 for a workout at the stadium yesterday. Of course, 18th millionth sellout in a row here at the Jake. The Browns, and it's a fun time to be around this town. Everybody talking sports, and all sports. It's not, I'm a football fan, I don't like it's everything.
Everybody draws well on opening day. Even back before Jacobs Field, the Cleveland Indians would draw a big crowd for the opener, but they were actually the only team in Major League Baseball that drew more people the second game of the year.
Knocked down by Nagy, and he'll throw out Goodwin. There is 1 out. You were telling a funny story back in when you pitched here at Cleveland, right? Opener, 80,000. Second game,
yeah.
What?
I came from the Dodgers in 1981. The Dodgers win the World Series. I show up, everybody says, you ain't going to believe it. You're going to be shocked at how much different it is. I showed up opening day. There's 80,000 people. It's wonderful. The next day, we're playing the Toronto Blue Jays. Lynn Barker, perfect game against Dave Steve. I'm thinking there's going to be a bigger crowd. Less than 1,500.
And
my wife cried. I mean, it was...
Well, let me tell you, 1,500, even 8 or 10,000 in that stadium was like 15. But, well, it was different then.
It was.
You think about what the Indians were then and now what they are now.
Charles Nagy's just a much more popular pitcher than I was.
Hey, he pitched there. At least he was here long enough to have hurled there in that
he was.
Old yard. Was an all-star at 92 when he was still pitching in the old ballpark.
Mark McLemore finally trying to lay down a bunt. You got to make Nagy move around a little bit. You want to get him out of the ball game.
Alomar to Tomey, and Mark McLemore is gone.
It's just hard for me to believe that nobody has tried to make Nagy move around a little bit. If this is the National League, Nagy's got to come to home plate, swing the bat, possibly run to first or second base. But in the American League, all you got to do is go get 3 outs, come sit down. Somebody's got to make him move around a little before he gets settled in and end up pitching 7 or 8 innings tonight.
Only 38 pitches so far for Charlie Nagy, pride of Fairfield, Connecticut, and he will face the catcher having one of the best years a catcher could have, and that's Pudge Rodriguez. Pudge with, in this series alone, 4 for 6 with 2 homers on Monday night, 3 for 5 Tuesday night, had 3 hits the game before that in Chicago. Got a 1-2-3 inning here for Charlie Nagy. 3 infield grounders. That means he's on it. 1-0 Texas, heading to the bottom of the third.
Rangers lead 1-0 going into the bottom of the third inning, but John Burkett, had the bases loaded and finally got out of it. He challenged him right down the middle with Reynolds. Now he gets his curveball going, and he runs a fastball up and in on his hands, gets the easy pop-up on the infield. Burkett put himself in that jam with the bases loaded with 2 base on balls. He was able to get himself out of it.
Now the heart of the Cleveland order here in the bottom of the third inning. Omar Vizquel, Roberto Alomar, Manny Ramirez. 2-3-4. In on the grass at third is Zeal. Third of a 4-game set between these 2 division leaders. You know, it's more fan talk than anything else, although it's on Johnny Oates' mind. It's on Mike Hargrove's mind. And Oates says, you know, we got to win our division first. Let's slow down here. But they all want that best record. I mean, the Yankees aren't winning 114 games this year. So the best record would get you home field in all the series. The best record would also, well, actually, it wouldn't ensure anything about the Yankees. I mean, and Cleveland doesn't fear the Yankees. I mean, they knocked them out a couple of years ago. Texas last year played 3 tight ball games with the Yankees, actually low-scoring games. Games that Texas normally would win if you hold the opposition low. McLemore over to Stevens, and there's 1 out.
Well, you're talking about records. Neither manager will tell us on the record that they do not want to play the New York Yankees, but we all know that to be true. I mean, there's a reason the Yankees were the world champions last year. They're such a good club. Derek Jeter off and running. He's certainly a candidate for the MVP, as is 3 or 4 guys in the ballpark tonight.
I mean, we have 6 weeks to go, obviously, and of course it depends who the wild card team is, because the wild card team cannot play the division winner from their own division. So if the Red Sox made it, or the Blue Jays, and Boston made it last year, then Boston cannot open up with the Yankees. That means either Texas or Cleveland, assuming they both win their divisions. One of those 2 gets New York. If Oakland makes it, and Texas has the best record, no way. Oh, actually, that actually, there's so many pieces of the puzzle that I'm not going to get tangled, but I'm going to need 5 minutes to explain it. I know what I mean, and you know where I'm going. we'll just move on. There's lots of variables, but if you have the best record, that would probably say you're not playing the Yankees. Plus, you want to have it anyway. Home field.
Well, Toronto Blue Jays are all of a sudden starting to take themselves out of contention. They've lost 7 in a row now. But how about Art Howe and those Oakland A's? General manager Billy Beane, what's he got, a $22 million payroll budget there? They're simply, Boomer, just playing harder than any other team they play.
They're fun. We had them on opening night, and you could just see it in the clubhouse. Art said, he didn't say, I don't know that we can't win the division. He said, you know what? I know we can be better than 2 of the other 3 teams in the division. I don't know which ones. One of those 3, quote, contenders is not going to have a good year, and that happened to be Anaheim. And there's the wild card standings as the A's are at the Red Sox tonight for game 3 of a 4-game set that's even at 1 apiece so far. And they said, we think we can beat at least one of the 2 contenders that plays good ball, and then we'll see. We think we can finish above 500. We know we can hit. And you know what? Except, I'll tell you in a minute, as Roberto Alomar hits it to left, but not quite deep enough. And Rusty Greer is there. And there is 2 outs. Maybe Billy can tell us about what's going on. Billy?
Chris, it's too confusing, but I can tell you Marquise Grissom played for the Indians in '97, now with the Brewers against Mike Hampton of the Astros. Hampton trying to become the first 17-game winner of the NL. Grissom here drives in Loretta. Houston tied with the Reds coming in. Lead trail 2-0 in the bottom of the first.
Give back Loretta. The Brewers at Houston tonight. And Billy will keep you updated on that Oakland-Boston game. And I guess that's what, 1-0 in the 4th, it looks like. Boston.
Thing we can't forget about the Oakland A's, though, is the injury to Tony Phillips. Almost to a man, when you go to their ball club and ask what's the difference in this ball club this year, he was the first name that was mentioned. With him being out for the year now, what kind of an impact is that going to have on the chemistry of that club?
Plus veteran leadership with Timmy Raines with the lupus, and we hope that Timmy is doing all right. You take 2 presences, that's not a word. Well, maybe just add it. 2 men with presence like that out of a clubhouse of a young team, and that'll really hurt them. But they're resilient. 0-2 pitch. Manny Ramirez is outside. Hey, they're just 5.5 behind Texas at 23-10 since the All-Star break. Is the best record in the league since the All-Star break. But Oakland's 22-10, so they just can't shake those A's. Ramirez has worked it back to 2-2.
Burke's taking a couple of long looks at home plate umpire Laz Diaz as well tonight. He feels like he's found the corner. He's getting squeezed a little bit here with the home team in front of the home crowd.
Wide of third base coach Jeff Alfred E. Newman.
He's made things a lot more difficult on himself here in the bottom of the 3rd inning. He got the first 2 guys out back in the bottom of the 2nd. You get Richie Sexson out, you got 8, 9, and 1 to deal with. Normally not going to be a problem. Instead, he's had to go through 2, 3, and hopefully 4 now here with Manny Ramirez in the bottom of the 3rd.
Well, he's not going to stare down Laz Diaz on that one. The high fastball, and it doesn't look like Ramirez was looking for it. A 1-2-3 inning for John Burkett. One nothing in a score that I know we've only played 3 innings, Rick Sutcliffe, but we did not predict 1-0 after 3 between Texas and Cleveland. And Sunday Night Baseball sees these very Cleveland Indians and the team that scored the most runs in the majors against a team that leads everyone in home runs. The Seattle Mariners, Junior, A-Rod and company, John and Joe, and Sunday Night Baseball after baseball tonight at 8 Eastern time. And get a look at Safeco Field. Have you been up there yet?
Absolutely. Was there for the opener right after the All-Star game.
And
a beautiful facility. Reminds you a lot of this place right here. And especially for me, the smiles you see on everybody's face that walks into the ballpark.
See that roof work yet, or it didn't have to that night?
Saw it work the 2nd night that we were there. Also saw the fact that the ball does not carry nearly as far as it did at the Kingdome.
All of a sudden, Lou doesn't have pitching problems? Well, let's not go that far.
Right off the bat, the bottom of the first inning, Griffey Jr. hit one. Everybody thought he got it to left center. It was caught on the warning track, and all of a sudden the rumors started up.
Rusty Greer, Juan Gonzalez, Rafael Palmeiro, and Nagy gets another ground ball out. Alomar to Thome, 1 down. So that's 5 straight ground ball outs for Charlie Nagy, starting with a double play. 3 straight to Alomar.
Boomer, we talked about Nagy not being at 100%. Well, when something like that happens to a pitcher, he's not going to overthrow. A sinker ball pitcher like Nagy, from time to time, ironically, that illness or that fever can help him stay within himself and constantly rely on that sinker.
Here's Juan Gonzalez. Gonzalez has had a bit of a wrist problem, and of course, that is ripped but foul. And the wrist problem may have part to do with it, but you know, lately, the last month or a little bit more, we have not seen the Juan Gonzalez that we've grown accustomed to seeing. First 70 games for Gonzalez this year, you would expect 23 homers. Last 33, 5. And the only reason that he had number 5 on there is he's hit one in this series. So, I mean, that is just unlike Juan Gonzalez. 5 homers in over a month.
Well, the first thing that jumps out at me is the wrist injury and how important those wrists are to hitters. We look at Tony Gwynn and how has he continued to be such a great hitter for all those years. He's not as fast as he once was, but his wrists are as strong. He actually has lead weights that he screws into the bottom of bats to keep those wrists strong.
Not during the game.
No. That would be illegal.
No, we had youngsters that think so. I wanted to make sure that they understood.
I'm sure you can find them from stores around the country. It's just a little insert that you screw in, different type weights in there. And what Tony will do, he'll swing off the tee with that bat. I mean, a lot of guys will take weights and do wrist curls and what have you. We walk into a clubhouse, Boomer, you see all of the hitters with those things in their hand. Wrist and forearms so important to power hitters.
Well, we used to do those curls. They were with Budweiser.
I don't think 12 ounces is enough to really increase your strength a whole lot.
I didn't say they were 12 ounces. I mean, maybe the tall boys. Moving right along on a full count to Juan Gonzalez. No wonder I never made it to the major league level. Good job by Gonzalez, because that was not a pitch he could do anything with, and he just stayed alive.
Nagy knows that Gonzalez is not the type of hitter that likes to walk. Only 30-some base on balls this year. He gets paid to swing the bat. You don't get your name in the paper for 2 base on balls per night. You get your name in the paper when you drive in runs, as Gonzalez did in the top of the first for his 100th RBI this year.
Gets him fishing, so Nagy, you know, they might find out what this bug is and just kind of make sure that he has a bad night's sleep the night before and make him feel uncomfortable, because Charlie looks pretty darn impressive.
Well, what he did right there was he worked from the neck up. He simply did not let his mind think about how weak his body was at that moment. He knew Gonzalez was going to swing the bat, throw a little breaking ball out of the zone that he can't reach, and you get the strikeout.
Bases clear for Rafael Palmeiro, who flew out to center field to end the first inning. Texas leads 1-0 here in the 4th on a fielder's choice for Gonzalez, and that's his RBI number 100 for Juan on the year. Opposite way and fouled off by Palmeiro. Rafi, a lifetime .294 hitter. And you really wouldn't think about it, but with his 32 home runs this year, he has 346 for his career. Now, you wouldn't, I know he had some big home run years in Baltimore, but you know, mid-300s, you wouldn't think of that, would you?
Well, it's because he's always standing around Juan Gonzalez, and Gonzalez is just so much bigger than he is. But he's just such a smart hitter, Palmeiro.
Foul.
Gonzalez is the type of guy, Boomer, that you can pitch to. You know he doesn't want to walk. So as a pitcher, that gives you an advantage. Palmeiro has always been a guy that's just the opposite. You don't want to pitch to him, he'll simply take the base on ball. So now you've got to make more mistakes to him. Gonzalez, bigger and stronger, can hit the ball further. Palmeiro just works from the neck up a little bit more.
And on the inside corner is rung up. So 2 punch-outs in this 1-2-3 inning for Charlie Nagy. 1-0 Texas.
Bill Pito in the studio for Mark McGwire, homerless in his last 18 at-bats facing Chad O.J. And there it goes with a man on. His 48th of the year. One more now than Sammy Sosa for the Major League lead. Ray Langford followed with a homer. 4-1 Cards, bottom 1.
So they're doing this again, huh? They're doing it again.
Sammy said it was on about 2 weeks ago.
I would say so. Pace pretty close, right, to last year?
Right there.
When did McGwire hit 50 last year? He was in New York. I remember that. He had a big, the Dana was a double twilight doubleheader. I mean, he had a big series there. It was not. This was, speaking of hitting it deep, this is way back and caught. Gonzalez flags down that ball by David Justice. And you can see in the flag, Rick, the wind going right to left, and the wind just held it in the park.
That's the only thing that kept this shutout intact for John Burkett right here. The second time that Dave Justice has hit the ball well. He's just not the same hitter that he once was. He's still a good productive hitter, but not able to get it out of the ballpark right to the edge of the wall once again.
Pitch to Jim Thome is ball 1. Justice knows we just missed it. Ooh. Thome saw the pitch. He just didn't get there.
Talking with the Cleveland Indians about this ballpark, they say, as in most parks on warm days, it'll carry. Look at the power Thome generates right there. Look at him spin out on that front foot. But we talked about earlier the weather being cool here. The air is heavy. The wind is blowing from the right field line to the left field line. It's a nice night to pitch, even if you're Charles Nagy.
Hard to miss that American flag. I tell you, it's blowing from right to left. We mean it. Thome swings through that one from Burkett.
You also know, as big as that flag is, it's going to take a lot of wind to move it that much.
In view of the Jackets, the one thing the Rangers were saying is they think that, of course, another one doing all the hitting here up until tonight. They said this has got to be the smallest park in the American League. I said, smaller than Baltimore? And Johnny Oates and company said, oh, yeah. They weren't saying it disparagingly. Don't get me wrong. They weren't saying no wonder I mean, they weren't like that at all. It's just this is their only visit here this year. Remember, they're not here. It's a kind of the odd schedule. They played 4 in the spring in Texas. This is the only 4 games that they'll play here all year, barring the postseason. And then there's a 2-game series in September in Texas. So 6 and 4. It's kind of an oddball. Under it is Sexton. Coming in is Goodwin from center field, and he makes the catch. An 8-pitch inning for John Burke. These guys are looking like, well, Nagy is an all-star. Berkey was one. They're pitching like. Chris Berman, Rick Sutcliffe with you on Wednesday Night Baseball from the Jake. The Rangers lead the Indians 1-0. And most of you will see Mike Piazza of the New York Mets beginning the night tied with Atlanta for first in the torrid NL East race. They're at San Diego. As the Pirates winning it last night, with the Mets winning in extra innings in the first game on Monday night. Some of you will see the Cubs at Arizona as Arizona begins the evening with an 8-game lead in the NL West. Diving is Jim Thome. Flipping over to Charlie Nagy. Zeal is gone on 1 pitch. 1 out. Jimmy kind of timed that dive a little bit too. I mean, I don't know that he really needed to do it. It's almost like a racing dive. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, go.
And I'm sure Charles Nagy right now, a big fan of natural grass. That ball right there hit pretty hard. If it's on AstroTurf, it's into right field for a base hit. The natural grass slowed it down enough that Tomei could get to it for first out.
Since Lee Stevens singled in the second inning, there has not been a ball out of the infield. So after 13-5 and 15-4, Texas wins. You mean to tell me, no, he did not go around, says Brian O'Nora third.
Well, you know the reason. You're normally used to working with offensive guys. The big red machine, Joe Morgan, Ray Knight. You got a pitching guy here tonight.
Yeah. You're right. I have more pitcher's duels when I work with Buck Martinez. You know, catcher. You're right. Here you are. This is a game you can appreciate.
That's right. We sit down and go over the game before with the starting pitchers, and when they tell us something that's not right, we go, you can't pitch in that way. I mean, you got to do this, you got to do that.
Pitching coach Phil Regan, one of the great nicknames, and by the way, not mine. One of the great baseball nicknames, the Vulture, when he pitched, because he used to come in and win a lot of games out of the bullpen. That one year with the Dodgers, the starter or the team would come from behind after the starter got knocked out, and he would vulture wins. Plus, it sounds like a good name for a relief pitcher, the Vulture.
Yeah, but you don't like being a starting pitcher looking behind you.
No.
That guy.
And Stevens was the last one that hit it out of the infield. He's the next one that hits it out of the infield. There's one out. Billy Pito, what do you have?
Here's what we have, Chris. Oakland one game behind the Red Sox in the wild card chase. This is Butch Husky down the line and fair. Nomar Garcia-Parra comes in to score. Sox have since added another, and right now lead at 3-0 in the top of the fifth.
That's a 4-game series at Fenway. Thank you, Billy. What an exciting finish on Monday night. Oakland won the laugher last night. Drawback just missing a grand slam, down by 2 runs on Monday night. Composer, they argue about it. Was it fair, foul? Composing himself, hitting a 3-run double off the wall. There goes Stevens. Oh, and he got him. We figured they would surprise Einar Diaz, but he was ready for the challenge. Stevens has a big guy going like that, huh?
He's got a great jump right here. Nagy did not expect him to go. Look at him off and running right there. He had 4 steps before Nagy put his left foot down. But the strong arm of Diaz gets it there in plenty of time. Vizquel in perfect position to make the tag. And give Jeff Newman a little bit of credit for that right there. Jeff Newman, the third base coach for the Cleveland Indians, has been working with Diaz on his footwork. He always had a strong arm, but the throws were leaking towards the second base side of the bat. He fixed that mechanically, and it pays off here tonight.
I just wouldn't expect Stevens with 2 stolen bases to be running, but you're right. Diaz has thrown out 15 of his last 32. So, I mean, that's Pudge Rodriguez territory almost. Almost 50%. Sandy Alomar, by the way, breaking ball to Royce Clayton, 3-1. Sandy Alomar caught 9 innings at AAA Buffalo on Monday night. Good report. DH yesterday. He was scheduled to catch tonight for the Bisons. And if things go well, they hope that he's back soon. He's been out since, I think, May 11th is the day. Fly ball to right. Ramirez back, turns, twists, makes the catch. So Clayton is gone, and so are the Rangers, heading to the bottom of the 5th inning. A pitcher's duel at the Jake. Yowza.
Still 1-0, bottom of the 5th inning. Good pitching, good defense. Jeff Newman worked with Diaz on his stride. Stay compact. Look at the step right here. Look at that left foot. Just a short little stride. Gets himself in position. That stride a lot like the sight on a gun. He had it pointing directly towards second base. Put it right on the money. Nagy appreciating that. Keeping this ball game close and getting his offense up to home plate.
Carlos Baerga, game 3 of the big return to Cleveland. We talked about his story his last time up, and says he's new faith, same upbeat attitude. And what was Mike Hargrove telling us beforehand? He said, you know, and here's the defense on Baerga.
Look how shallow they are in left center there. Tom Goodwin, knowing that Baerga does not have the power to the opposite field that he once did. Burkett going to pitch him hard away and try to let his defense work for him. If Baerga's going to hurt you with the long ball, he's going to pull it.
In there for a strike. Strike 3. So Burkett begins the 5th inning with a strikeout.
I'm a little bit surprised right there. The veteran Carlos Baerga did not see that defensive alignment. Sometimes the defense will tell you how they're going to pitch you. If they're playing you shallow into the opposite field, they're not going to give you a fastball in you can pull. They're not going to throw you anything off speed for a strike that you can pull, because that's not where the defense is at. All he threw that time was fastballs away, and Baerga gets caught looking.
Burkett with 4 strikeouts now works on the young catcher Diaz.
I'm flashing back to 1993 with John Burkett here. He looks like the 22-game winner.
Well, I tell you what, we had a saying for those that followed the Giants a little closely. In 93 was Burkett and Swift and pray for a snowdrift. with no disrespect meant to Buddy Black and the others. 22 wins for Burkett, 21 for Swift. 103 wins, just not quite enough.
Hard to believe that Burkett hasn't had a winning year since
I know.
then. I'm sorry, I know how you are with your
no. It's just,
current and former.
But he was really such an intelligent pitcher in addition to everything else. Well, you could hear him up here, Pudge, saying, get out of here, I've got it. Well, the preseason continues on ABC as well as ESPN, and Monday Night Football on ABC Monday at 8 Eastern. The defending Super Bowl champion Denver Broncos with TD 2,000-yard man Terrell Davis at Lambeau Field against the Green Bay Packers. The Packers under Ray Rhodes this year. Antonio Freeman signed, sealed, delivered, and I'll tell you what, are they excited about football here in Cleveland or what? 3-year wait. The Browns had the rug pulled from under them. The Browns fans did when they became the Ravens. And look, I know Carolina won a bunch of games their first year, and Jacksonville got successful right away. But if you're a Cleveland Browns fan, you watch Dave Roberts, there are just, if they won 3 games all year, went 3-13, but beat the Ravens at home, okay, the one-time Browns, beat the Steelers at home, which is, by the way, the opening game on the opening Sunday night on ESPN, and they beat Cincinnati at home. You know, this is the whole 6 seasons of success. Roberts flies to center field. Burkett has retired 10 in a row. He's back, and we'll be back after this. You can sum up baseball in one word. You never know. First 2 games, 37 runs, 54 hits. Tonight, through 5 innings, 1 run on 6 hits. Bottom of the order for Texas, Tom Goodwin. In the top, Mark McLemore, Pudge Rodriguez against Charlie Nagy. 4 hits for the Rangers, 2 hits for the Indians. It reminds me of the first game I ever went to. It was in high school at the time, at Fenway Park. Sonny Siebert was pitching for Boston, and he had a no-hitter through 5 innings. Right, that's what I'm saying. It's 1-0 between these 2 teams. Oh, we got a pitcher. No-hitter through 5 innings. Into the 6th inning. 1 out into the 6th, a no-hitter against Kansas City. Final, 11-8. Kansas City won. A no-hitter with 1 out in the 6th inning, 11-8. Amos Otis hit one dead over the flagpole in center field. And so we'll see. But what a job by Nagy and Burkett tonight.
Well, that's what happened to Mike Hargrove in the first game Monday night of this series. It was basically a pitcher's duel. Tied ball game going into the top of the 7th.
But he's 5-2. They're up 5-2. Punch out, tag out, no matter what, you're out.
Good splitter on the part of Nagy. But Grover was saying that it was a close ball game. He did not have Steve Carsey in the bullpen, though. He would have brought Carsey in the 7th inning to get through it. Most of the time, he does. There's a good splitter right there from Nagy. He catches good one on the swing. But he didn't have Carsey there, so he tried to send Berber back out for one more inning. He couldn't make it. The bullpen failed, and the next thing you know, it was a blowout.
Mark McLemore singled and scored the only run of this game in the 1st inning. So in a 1-0 game, although not necessarily, Rick, but I mean, strikeouts have not been a big. Nagy just with 3 and Burkett with 4. 1-0. You expect one of the two guys to probably have about 7 punch-outs at this point, wouldn't you think? In that sort of game.
That's what you look for. You got two guys, though, that have to rely on their sinking fastball right now. They've got to throw off-speed pitches for strikes when they're behind in the count. And for the most part, they've been able to do that with the exception of the 2nd inning for Burkett.
4 punch-outs for Nagy. I missed one. They each have 4, and the count is 2-2 to McLemore. McLemore singled, as we told you, then grounded out to second base. Robbie Alomar has 4 assists and a put-out at second base tonight.
Mark McLemore is one of the smarter game players in all of baseball for me. Even in this at-bat right here, he's not swung the bat yet. He knows they've got to work Charles Nagy, and that's exactly what he's done.
Long run for Baerga and Vizquel. Look at Omar go over and walk on water on top of the tarp. Ah, he's so smooth doing this. My goodness.
Boomer, we know, as everybody out there watching does as well, that play is not that easy. You don't know where the tarp is. You don't know exactly where the ball is going to come down. But it seems like Vizquel knows that. You wonder why 44,000 people come to this ballpark every night. It's because either him or Robbie Alomar or Kenny Lofton is going to do something like that on a daily basis.
Pudge Rodriguez flew out to center, grounded out to second, and look at the alignment of the outfield. We'll show it to you in a moment. Well, no, we won't, because that's a fair ball. Long throw for Baerga across to Tomey, and another 1-2-3 inning for Charlie Nagy. Heading to the bottom of the 6th inning. 1-0 Texas. Makes it look so easy.
Why is this so important right now? Well, it saves another 3-2 pitch from Charles Nagy to Mark McLemore. McLemore with a 370 on base percentage. That's why everybody's up there high-fiving him. If McLemore were able to get on base in that situation, you've got Pudge Rodriguez coming up 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 with Texas. That's a mess right there.
And how often do you see it? I know there's 9 guys in a batting order, but I think it's 1 out of every 5 times that a guy who makes a play in the field, he leads off the next inning. The odds are much lower than 1.
Well, what does the Swami say about him leading off, getting on base? Can we do that? We don't make those predictions.
No, Swami is a football 21st year now, Rick, of the Swami.
Oh, my goodness.
21st year of pigskin prognostication. That is right around the corner.
You couldn't possibly be that old, partner. Huh?
I started young. I was, well, you know when I started.
Waterbury, Connecticut.
Because this young man to my right, Rick Sutcliffe, was kind enough. I was not in Waterbury when you pitched for the Waterbury Dodgers, AA, which would have been what? That was 76. Your great rookie year, Rookie of the Year season with the LA Dodgers in 79, laid down by Vizquel. Zia, no, not going to make the play. Omar was flying out of the box, and the Swami predicts he's going to get on base. He's right. 1-0 on the season. Billy Pito, what do you predict?
Nomar Garciaparra, Chris, leading hitter in the American League, coming in, hitting .358. Base hit, drives in Jose Offerman, and it's been all Boston so far against Oakland as the Red Sox lead it by the score of 4-0 in the top of the 6th.
Pat Rapp pitching tonight, huh? Times Rapp for Portugal has done a really good job. I saw the Red Sox after the Indians went in and bombed Boston 2 games 2 weeks ago, Portugal just set him right down and won 7-2. Sometimes it's the pitcher you don't expect to pitch is the big game. You pitch against Cologne, you figure, all right, that's the Indians win. Cologne, Portugal, not the case. So Rapp doing the job tonight. Roberto Alomar with the team down 1-0 in Vizquel at first. Robbie struck out and flew out to left field. Just think to him of those World Championship teams in Toronto, and he always came up with the big hit or the big play or the big something. Like Cleveland brought him over here, as you mentioned. Rick, second time around. Gary, the story is that you know that I started young because you were nice enough to give us a phone interview and some unknown little sportscaster in Waterbury, Connecticut, my second job, and pitching for the big L.A. Dodgers. But you remember the people were nice to you in Waterbury, and you did a phoner with us, and you were one of our biggest guests the year that I did the show, and it was about 12 years later I told you about it, right?
As Joaquin Andujar said, you never know. You just
I got to tell you, you were a gentleman, and you were really touched by that. You appreciated what you did. Now here we are working together, so you truly never know.
And we got a good one.
There, oh my goodness. Now, I don't care if Pudge Rodriguez had a laser, literally. What happened there? Vizquel had it 2/3 down before the ball was left in that pitcher's hand.
Well, I'll give you his name, Robbie Alomar at home plate. There's so many things Alomar can do in that situation. He can lay down a bunt for a base hit. He can hit a ball through the hole. He can hit a ball out of the park. Burkett just completely forgot about Vizquel.
And Robbie now hits it to the right side, which will move Vizquel over to third base. Yeah, it's interesting. National League ball here a little bit as McLemore makes the play. Well, there's the updated total now with 7 hits. 37 runs, 1 run, 54 hits, 7 hits. It's a fun game. I love games like this. We had a 1-0 game earlier this year. Finley over Cone on a Wednesday night early game from Yankee Stadium. The type of game you would expect to see in the postseason, and maybe these two teams will have a chance to play against each other in the postseason.
Well, even the weather gives you the feel of October.
This is great. Vizquel with 2 stolen bases tonight. Off-speed pitch, but a little looper, and we're tied. That will be the softest of the 123 RBIs that Manny Ramirez has this year. But you know what? You're tying a ball game.
You know what? You wonder why a guy hitting .323 with 32 homers and 123 RBIs is not even the MVP of his team. But they say Robbie Alomar is. Why? Well, Robbie Alomar simply hit a ground ball to second base in that inning. But there were some intangibles involved. Burkett forgot about Vizquel because of the respect for Alomar. He steals second base standing up. Alomar simply advancing. Johnny Oates has to bring his infield in to try to keep the lead. By doing that, Ramirez just simply flicks the bat on a breaking ball up and out over the plate. We got us a tie ball game. Cleveland's still hitting in the bottom of the 6th.
And Cleveland playing small ball. That's pitching coach Dick Bosman along with Pudge Rodriguez talking to John Burkett.
Robbie Alomar can play in any league at any time for anybody. So many things that he does on a baseball field just instinctively.
Well, of course, we're still playing the 6th inning here, but just to put it into perspective for how well Burkett has pitched, as David Justice steps up with 2 fly ball outs, 1 to left, 1 to right. Chopper, that's a base hit. Manny Ramirez will take third, and runners at the corners for the Indians, who are bucking to take the lead for the first time. Boy, Ramirez on a little looper, Justice on a chopper. I just started to say, Burkett in 16 starts has gone 7 innings, only once. That puts into perspective how well he's going tonight.
You can see the concern there on the face of Johnny Oates. He knows that a couple of bloops are normally followed by a blast. Justice had this one coming, though. He had hit a couple of balls hard right on the nose to the warning track. Hits a hard ground ball right here, gets a fortunate hop, and picks up his first hit of the night. We'll see how good my Swami is. You predicted Vizquel would get on. He did.
Posthumously, yeah.
I'm predicting a blast right here.
He has that feel. You're right. Bleeder, bleeder, blast. Jim Thome grounded to the first baseman, struck out.
Well, there's more at stake right here tonight than just a win for the Texas Rangers and John Burkett. He's pitching for his job. When Mark Clark comes off the DL, it might be his spot that he takes.
In there for a strike, which Thome laid off. 0-1. One of the strengths of the Texas Rangers is their bullpen. Vanafro and Crabtree. Vanafro, Johnny Oates says, hey, Zimmerman, rightly so, has gotten all the pub. No one knows what kind of year he's had. Pudge thinking to catch Manny napping, and he almost did, down at third base.
Well, Burkett in trouble right here. Boomer, you mentioned earlier what a great bowler he is. 300 games to his credit. Well, with guys on the corner and with Jim Thome at home plate, it's almost like the 5-10 split.
Right, that's right.
You got to make a pitch here.
We actually talked about that beforehand. Pitches like this, and he says, yeah. And now he's got runners on the corners after just giving up bleeders. He goes, it's like you threw the ball in the pocket and you got a 7-10 split. That was a bowler talking there. Berkey wants to put one in the pocket, but with a little English on it here. Now we understand that Mike Munoz is up. One-time Colorado Rocky. So, you know, they've gotten here into the 6th inning, and Johnny Oates and Dick Bosman say everybody get loose. Oh, Thome looking for the downs and swings and misses.
Well, you look at the numbers on Thome. Very seldom does he ground into a double play. What will he do? He'll hit one out of the ballpark, particularly with swings like this right here. He'll walk. He leads the club with 88 base on balls. He'll also strike out a lot. He leads the club as well in that category with 124.
Breaking ball did not go. The appeal down to O'Nora at third base. So the count is full.
Well, they talk about the 10th man on the field. There's 44,000 people cheering right here. Said no way, as did the third base umpire, Brian Nora.
He said to ignore that swing. Now the count is full to Thome.
Crowd, believe it or not, can influence umpires. You get a borderline pitch from time to time, they get loud like this. When you have a young umpire, I'm telling you, it'll make a difference. That's the toughest thing for an umpire to learn at the big league level, is to turn those ears off. You can't listen.
And Burkett has struck out Thome swinging for the 2nd time tonight. What a big pitch from John Burkett. 5 Ks now for Berkey.
Well, I guess I should stick to my pitching predictions and stay away from guys hitting blast. That's ball 4 right there. It's a fastball up and away. Thome getting a little bit greedy there. Burkett not giving in. All Thome could have done to help the club in that situation, take the base on balls, load them up for Richie Sexson. Instead, he tried to give Cleveland the lead. The crowd possibly getting inside of his brain a little bit. And he tried to do something he wasn't capable of doing, getting that high fastball.
Manny Ramirez, third base. David Justice, the runner at first base. Now with 2 outs for Richie Sexson, who was 1 for 2 tonight. Base hit to left, fly out to center field. That's one thing you do have with Sexton. I'm not trying to be funny at all. I mean, it's a big strike zone. So if you're getting the high fastball, I'm not saying you want to throw in the wheelhouse, but he's 6'7", and it looks like the strike zone is higher than many ups, Rick. If you have additional room with which to work, correct?
That strike zone was supposed to be expanded in that direction this year.
Well, with Sexton, it's expanded even more.
Well, he can expand a ballpark from time to time as well. One of the best young power hitters in all of baseball right now. He's the reason they were willing to give up on young Sean Casey when they traded him to the Cincinnati Reds for Dave Berman. Sean Casey can only play first base. Jim Thome plays first base for the Cleveland Indians. Sexton can also play a decent left field.
Foul back.
That's 91 pitches on the night for John Burkett. Reason there's activity in the Rangers bullpen. He's a guy that normally does not throw a lot of pitches. Last year in the top 10 and fewest pitches per at bat. He's got to throw strikes. He's got to make him put the ball in play. Not normally a strikeout pitcher. He's turned into one as of that here in the bottom of the sixth, though.
Misses outside. 2-2. His season high in pitches is 109.
It's amazing to me to watch how short of leads the base runners get with Pudge Rodriguez behind home plate. I mean, they're not 5 feet off the bag, and as soon as he catches it, they're hustling back.
Burkett just rears back and fires with runners on the corners and strikes out. First Thome and then Sexton. The Indians do tie it. We're knotted at 1. Hall of Fame not far here from the Jake, and on the way to Cleveland Browns Stadium. And John Burkett finishes, well, I guess with a handshake. Does that mean he's done after those 2 strikeouts?
That means it's it right there.
What were you saying? You know that because if you get a handshake, then what?
Well, you get a veteran pitcher out there, there might be some, you never know what might be on his right hand. You shake his left hand if you're telling him it's a nice job.
Rusty Greer, Juan Gonzalez, Rafael Palmeiro in a 1-1 game between Texas and Cleveland, the 2 highest scoring teams in baseball. Breaking ball by Charlie Nagy. In there to Greer, 1-2.
This is a situation right here, Boomer, where the great ones respond with what they call a shutdown. Cleveland's tied it up. Nagy needs to put a 0 up in the top of the 7th here. Don Drysdale used to talk about how important that was. When your team scores to tie it up or take the lead, you've got to put a 0 up. It's so important right there to keep the momentum on your side.
Greer with a little looper, and that'll be a base hit. The 5th Texas hit of the night, the 2nd for Rusty Greer. He's 2 for 3. As we look at our Pep Boys in-game box score, the Pep Boy for Texas has been Rusty Greer and Lee Stevens. Those 2 guys have 4 of the 5 hits. And the guys in the lineup who have the big batting averages are not helping themselves. They're 0 for 8.
Well, the one guy that's not done anything as of yet, Rafael Palmeiro right there. More times than not, he's going to put something up in that box score.
Juan Gonzalez with a fielder's choice drove in his 100th run of the season in the 1st inning. He's up now, and he slugs this one down the line. Fair ball. It'll rattle off the wall. Greer is into 3rd. Gonzalez into 2nd with a good throw by Justice, but that was double all the way. Here come the Rangers, the Power Rangers.
Lots of good news for Texas here. A couple of base hits, a possibility of taking the lead back. But more importantly than that for Johnny Oates, Rusty Greer running well. He's had a bad ankle. Juan Gonzalez running well on this double. He's been nursing some hamstring injuries. Nagy gets the fastball up. Look how quick. That's a long swing right there, but look at how quick he gets those hands inside the baseball. He's able to keep that line drive fair down the left field line. And you've got trouble sitting there at home plate in Mr. Palmeiro.
Now, obviously, with a 1-1 game, infield in, although now they've backed off on the right side. So that they were in, and then they talked about it, and they went back to normal. which for Palmeiro with a pull left-handed hitter is pretty deep for Alomar and Coleman.
He's going to try to pull the ball, particularly in this situation, though, because a ground ball to second not only scores a run, but it gets Gonzalez to third base with just one out. Todd Zeile possibly picking up another RBI with something less than a base hit.
So Nagy worked to the outside corner here. Is that what he tries to do?
This is where you try to go hard away or soft in so that he pulls it foul.
This was a pinch hit home run, Rick, on Monday night in a 5-5 game off Steve Reed. 3-run homer made it 8-5, and the onslaught was on.
It was the 7th inning, a situation where Mike Hargrove would normally use Steve Karsay. He's a starting pitcher right now. He wasn't available, and the game turned out to be a blowout.
Phil Regan with a quick visit to Nagy. Just a quick strategy talk. I don't think he's asking how he is.
Well, he probably wanted to take a thermometer out there, take his temperature. You all right? You just look into the eyes right there. If he's pale, looks like he's sweating profusely, he wants out of the game, then you make a move. He said, I'm all right. Reagan returns to the dugout, and Nagy gets back to business.
Palmeiro steps out. Nagy steps off. The old Mexican standoff. We'll try it again. And now Diaz will go out to talk to Nagy. They've been assigned situation.
Yeah, they've got a man on second out there. Gonzalez and Palmeiro have worked together before. Gonzalez probably won't look in and try to pick up the sequence of signs, but he will try to give location to Palmeiro at home plate. If he sees the young Diaz move one way or another too quickly, he'll pass that on to the hitter.
Palmeiro passes this one to deep center field. Back, gone! Three-run homer in a tie game Monday in the 7th. 3-run homer in a tie game Wednesday in the 7th. Palmeiro has just hit his 33rd home run. He has 108 ribbies on the year, and the Rangers have regained the lead, but this time by 3, 4-1. Now that, you're the baseball Swami, you sensed it from him. You knew he was up to something.
Well, the great ones have to put up a 0 in that inning and get their offense back in the dugout. Charles Nagy has always been able to win 15 or 16 games. But, Boomer, there's another level. There's people that win 20, 21, 22 games, and you do that by stopping the opposition in this situation.
So a quieter Jacobs Field. What a season Palmeiro continues to have, as well as Nagy pitched. And here's a base hit up the middle from Todd Zeile. And as Mike Hargrove comes out of the dugout, we will have a move here. Yep. We thought we were going to make our own move. But we'll check in with Bill Pito shortly, as it looks like Ricardo Rincon. Little Ricky is going to come into the game for Charles Nagy, who, feeling not 100% until the 7th, pitched 100%, but he's staring at a 4-1 deficit. We'll be back.
6th inning, the Athletics began the inning down 4-0. They're down 4-1 here. Jason Giambi all the way to the wall. The bases were loaded. 3 runs come in. It's now 4-4. Sox coming up to bat in the bottom of the 6th.
The A's are spunky, are they not? Thank you, Billy. And Charlie Nagy, you know, he really pitched his heart out tonight. Had all those ground ball outs going for a while, but all of a sudden, and there's his line tonight. Here's Burkett, who now stands to win the game, although he was out of it. Right?
Already had his hand shook. The bullpen had gotten a call. Normally in this situation for Texas, it's going to be Tim Crabtree pitching the 7th. It'll be Zimmerman in the 8th, and if the save is still in order, it'll be Mr. Wetland in the 9th.
Rafael Palmeiro doing the job, and that brings over Ricardo Rincon, who came over from Pittsburgh in the offseason. Change for outfielder Brian Giles. We talked to Mike Hargrove about Rincon a little bit before. He is Well, look at 18 walks and 29 2/3 out of the bullpen. That's not good.
And only 18 strikeouts to go along with that. He dominated left-handed hitters the last couple of years. He has not done that consistently this year.
Nice play. Oh! Alomar to Vizquel with a 2-bounce pass. Oh, man.
You know, there are a lot of guys in baseball that you would pay to buy a ticket to come out and watch play. You got to buy season tickets to come out and watch these guys play defense. They simply do things that you know yourself you can't do, nor could you ever do. How he got to that ball, I don't know. He's mad at himself that it hit his foot on the flip. Otherwise, that could have been a double play.
Well, that's why he tried. That was the only way he felt he could make the throw and still have a chance for a double play. So Vizquel makes the one play in foul ground. Alomar makes that play, and for the first time tonight, Lee Stevens is retired, although obviously he's at first for the fielder's choice. He's 2 for 3. Here's Royce Clayton, who's 0 for 2. You know, we put up that number that the 300 hitters for Texas were 0 for 8. So now 3 for 11. With hit. Royce Clayton. You know, now that he's been at Texas after that trade last year from St. Louis when he went over with Stottlemyre, and he's a good year removed from St. Louis. I say this when we have a chance to do a game with him. The quiet class with which he handled a very difficult situation in St. Louis, where Ozzie Smith, one of the greatest ever to play the position, was in his last year or so, and Clayton was brought on to be the heir apparent. I mean, he didn't play as well as the Cards had hoped in the big picture. But I thought the class with which he handled that was a bubbly situation there for a while. Thought he was excellent. In the air to center field. Back it goes. He's excellent here. What happened to that wind in right center field? That's up in the jet stream and just went right through it. And Clayton has a 2-run home run. The ball just kept going. I thought it would hang up, but the wind is obviously different than it was earlier in the game.
Well, it seems like that the wind is not as strong as it once was. I didn't think this ball was going to get out of the park. I knew Palmeiras had a chance. You just don't expect that from Royce Clayton. Only the 7th home run of the year, just 29 RBIs coming into the ball game. If he's going to hit the ball out of the park, normally he's got to pull the baseball. That ball hits a pretty much the deepest part of the ballpark here. Charles Nagy looking on, wondering what in the world happened. This was a pitcher's duel, but all of a sudden now 6-1.
Ten to 1 home runs in this series. Texas, the advantage. A rusty gate attempt by Tom Goodwin. Burke would say, you know, I knew I could come out and shake the manager's hands, and then, oh, by the way, as an appreciation for what you did for us tonight, here's a 5 spot while you're on the way to the shower. I think he would take his chances. To make no mistake about it, I mean, this was the best game that John Burke has pitched all year. And in Cleveland, with the team obviously, you know, swarming a little bit after being embarrassed for 2 games. Come in here and pitch like that with the type of season he's had. And he said he felt pretty good before the game. He says, I feel like I've been pitching well. And the Ranger bats have supported him.
One thing Johnny Oates does so well is that he doesn't hold it against a starter that he only goes 6 innings. Instead, he congratulates him. That's all he wants out of his rotation.
Cal Rincon, there's one of those walks to Tom Goodwin, and we should tell you, Johnny Oates is writing it down right now, that this copyrighted telecast presented by authority of the Commissioner of Baseball may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. Accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without express written consent. So Rincon has faced a hard shot to turn into a fielder's choice. 2-run homer and a walk.
He's not disseminated, but he is awful disappointed That is Mike Hargrove in the performance of Ricardo Riccon. This guy was a closer for the Pittsburgh Pirates last year, 14 saves. He was supposed to come over and just get left-handed hitters out. This does not look like the guy that had the Pirate uniform on.
Mark McLemore singled and scored, grounded to second, and then had that foul pop that Vizquel made the marvelous play on foul ground.
Rincon still has the terrific slider, but to me it looks like he's just lost his confidence in his fastball. He's afraid to throw it in the strike zone, and when he falls behind and does, it gets hit out of the park like Royce Clayton did.
Steve Reed up throwing in the Indians' pen, the side armor. He was the one up in a hurry. That phone rang in a hurry. They didn't want to have to use this phone at this point.
They have used that phone a lot in this series. Last night with Mark Langston, the starting pitcher for the Cleveland Indians, only going 1 inning, 130 pitches thrown by their bullpen.
I hope that they have a those saver long distance plans. You know, through 5 innings Monday night the Rangers were shut out. So let's see, 4 innings then, and 9 yesterday is 13, and for what in the so in 20 innings they scored 32 runs. Actually 19 1/3. This is hit pretty well. Over is Ramirez. Oh, Manny with a great catch. And here comes a long sprint back to Goodwin. It's a double play. People don't know that Manny Ramirez is a pretty decent outfielder. If you watch this, you know it now. Wow!
A lot worse than that. Ricardo Riccon finally settles down. He gets the double play ball that he needs. But look at how it comes about right here. A rocket into the right center field gap. You want to know how much range Manny Ramirez has? You just saw it right there.
All right, now I'd like to talk to you about something. Johnny Oates and John Burkett shook hands as if. Burkett still pitching.
6-1.
I know, I understand. So is that a change? Supposing it's just 4-1. Supposing it was 2-1. We don't know.
He's gone. But I could see Johnny Oates' lips saying, nice job, that's it. Burkett came back and says, hey, there's more left in the gas tank. Let me go back out there at 6-1. Oatsy says, all right. Plus, you look at the part of the lineup coming up here in the bottom of the 7th. It's 8, 9, and 1. You got 3, 4, and 5. I would imagine Burkett's night was over with.
As soon as 2 guys get on, he's gone. Not 1 probably, but 2, right?
And he knows that the bullpen is ready.
Well, here's what happened. There was no hot water in the shower. He said, hey, Skip, I can't take a shower. Might as well pitch. That's the Swami stuff. Now, there you go. And he strikes out Baerga. We're giving his pitching epitaph for the night. And he's still in there playing. He struck out the last 3 guys.
In bowling, don't they call that a turkey? He's got 1 going right now. You get 3 strikes with the big ball in your hand. You get 3 strikeouts with the little ball in baseball. You're doing a terrific job as well. The problem for John Burkett, up until tonight's ball game, his fastball looked like that of a bowling ball.
Burkett now with 7 strikeouts. That ties his season high, and he's only gone 7 innings once. That was back at the end of June at Anaheim in a 5-0 win. So this is the best job this year on the mound for John Burkett. Diaz hustling, but Burkett makes the play, and there's 2 outs for the Indians, who trail at 6-1. In-game box score, Vizquel with a pair of hits and a circus play near the tarp. But very quiet again for Cleveland.
Boomer, that's the most amazing thing to me. The fact that the Texas Rangers have scored as many runs as they have, no big surprise. They're the second best offense in the American League. But why aren't the Cleveland Indians scoring?
Coming into the game, opponents were hitting .328 off John Burkett this year. Fouled off by Dave Roberts tonight, 5 for 25. 200. Hey, look, this is not an excuse make at all. You know better than I do. These seasons are a marathon. And you go into lulls. Although Cleveland, since the break, has hardly been great shakes. I mean, this is now bordering on more than a month lull for them, if you will, because they were way ahead of everyone for best record in baseball. But it's a marathon, and there's still a long way to go before the teams need to hit their postseason stride. As Roberts pops it, Pudge camps. And did you see that? He fired the mask. The ump has the mask. And the Rangers have the lead. For the 8th inning, the Rangers with a 6-1 lead over the Indians, looking to make it 3 in a row in this 3rd game of a 4-game series. Now, Laz Diaz, first of all, it looks like he's just come over from Browns football practice. Second of all, look at this play. Pudge camps under the ball. Now watch. Frisbee mask. Great grab. You know what? That's pretty darn impressive. And he never lost sight of the ball either. Did you see? He made the quick grab. He wanted to make sure he was... I haven't seen that very often, have you?
One eye on the mask, one eye on the baseball. He had to make that play, though. If he doesn't, as hard as Pudge throws that mask, it's going to knock the wind out of him.
That was a great play. Laz Diaz, one of the young umpires. And the new pitcher for the Cleveland Indians is the veteran reliever in his 52nd appearance, Steve Reed, who a couple years ago came over from the Giants. He served up that homer to Palmeiro on Monday night.
Always been real difficult against right-handed hitters. He comes from that 3/4 angle. Usually he'll throw in the mid-90s. Got a nasty slider. And looking at the lineup of the Texas Rangers, you got a right-hander in Rodriguez, a left-hander in Greer, a right-hander in Gonzalez. I would imagine that's the end of the night for Steve Reed. Johnny, Mike Hargrove has seen enough of the matchup of Steve Reed and Rafael Palmeiro. 2 at-bats, 2 three-run homers.
Lifetime. So Pudge is hitless thus far tonight, 0 for 3. With the 2 stolen bases that Vizquel has tonight on him. One of which was, well, both, he had no shot.
Neither one of them were on Pudge.
Well, one, nobody covered. The other, nobody watched. But he's now 26 guys have stolen. There's been 26 stolen bases against Pudge as Reed knocks it down. He has stolen 21. And it brings to mind the most amazing stat of all, which Pepperdine Pete Pasquarelli pointed out. He has a chance to steal more bases than he's allowed. There's no way that any catcher in the middle of August has ever been close to even that. The record for stolen bases for catchers is 32 by Duke Watson in the early 80s with the Royals. But, I mean, everyone was running then. There was a different... So there's no way... We're middle of the August. Isn't that preposterous?
That record might have been broken by the guy in Pittsburgh, Jason Kendall,
right,
without that horrible injury with him on the first base bag.
21 stolen bases for Pudge, only 26 allowed. That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. Rusty Greer, 2 singles tonight, a run scored. Very polite. Yes, sir. Hard-nosed from Montevallo, Alabama. University of Montevallo, I meant to say, in Alabama, born in Fort Rucker, Alabama. Let's quickly go to Bill Pito as Greer trots down to first.
All right, Chris, Boston and Oakland. We showed you Oakland tying it up. Here's Boston, the 7th. Trot Nixon at 3rd after a triple, and Jose Offerman. Fair ball down the line. Nixon comes in to score, and Offerman makes his way all the way to 3rd himself. So back-to-back triples for Boston, and they lead it now 5-4, still batting in the bottom of the 7th.
Well, here's the wild card race, so Boston could win that. They'd be 2 up on Oakland, and Texas wins this and Oakland loses. Texas will be 6.5 up on Oakland in the AL West. Vizquel squeezes it. Gonzalez gone, and now here's what you talked about. Reed against Palmeiro. With a 6-1 lead, you just let him try and get over it. Twice he's faced him in his career. The answer, no.
No, not with the offense of the Cleveland Indians. This game is still intact.
Faced him twice. He's given up a pair of 3-run home runs. Reed says, oh, I just want one try. After all, there's only one man on. I can't do it again, can I?
The odds say no. Mike Hargrove says yes.
So Grover has made the call. Chris Haney just brought up today with Langston DL is getting the call. We'll be back. Pitching change, and just in from Green Acres, Mr. Haney. Chris Haney. Well, you don't expect Arnold Zippel to come in from the bullpen, do you?
No.
Up for a second stint from Buffalo, and it deuces Palmeiro with the ground out from Alomar to Tomey. So Mike Hargrove knew what he was doing. Hey, 5 down, but this is the Indians. We'll see. Heading to the bottom of the 8th. A view of the new Cleveland Browns Stadium and nighttime in Cleveland, and you know, it's like that handshake you used to do to fool someone, like, ah, you pull the hand back. John Burkett is out to pitch the 8th inning. So, and you know what? Dusty Baker and the Giants, who won today against Montreal, they're watching at home probably because they had a day game.
You know Dusty's watching you.
Right, well, no. Yeah, I know. Big proof that the run starts tonight. Of course, the Diamondbacks may have something to say about that. They lead by 8. Maybe this is the silver lining they look for in the Bay Area. Heart of the order here for Cleveland, with Vizquel, Alomar, and Ramirez. Last complete game for John Burkett, 1997. Clayton, Stevens, Vizquel is gone, 1 out in the 8th. Billy Pito, what do you have?
Here's what we got, Chris. More runs for the Red Sox in the 7th inning. John Valentin at the plate with Jose Offerman in 3rd, and that's going to score Offerman without any problem. Boston has since added another. Sox lead at 7-4 in the bottom of the 7th, and Dale Swain for Pittsburgh hasn't homered since '97. Hit 2 tonight. Pittsburgh over the Reds.
All right, Billy, thank you. Dale Swain, remember that broken, that shattered leg? He was on his way to being a pretty good player. And that's a nice story and a lesson of perseverance. Robbie Alomar will send this one foul.
Boomer, you know this is my first year broadcasting with ESPN, but I love those updates because here we are sitting watching an important game as far as the American League home field advantage is concerned. Next thing you know, you got Boston and Oakland. You got all kinds of things happening around here. It's like having the clicker in my own hand.
It's great. It's just like having this scoreboard. Yeah, we own the clicker. Why we do it a little bit differently than everyone else. Why?
You always have, haven't you?
Well, that's another story, too. You knew that before the nation knew it, that's all.
I did.
Little chopper by Alomar. McLemore. Ground ball out. And there are 2 outs. Manny Ramirez coming out. Don't forget baseball tonight, tomorrow night with the Niners and the Seahawks going in prime time at 8:15. One edition of baseball tonight at 12:30 a.m. Ravi. It's a labor of love for everyone that works on that show. And we'll bring you the highlights no matter what time it is. So tune in for baseball at 12:30 a.m. Baseball tonight, tomorrow evening. Manny Ramirez on that. Oh, man, that was like a 52-mile-an-hour changing.
Sometimes less is more. John Burkett is finding that out here in the bottom of the 8th inning. A little sinker to get a ground ball to second, a couple of get-over breaking balls. He has not thrown anything at 100% effort. Everything right around 60, 70%.
This is someone who, as we pointed out, in the '93 Giants won 22-7. Last year gave up 123 earned runs, the most in the American League. This year, it had about a month or 5-week stint when he really pitched well, but the last few outings have not been great. Although he told me before the game, I didn't feel I pitched badly, and that I got unlucky. Well, maybe he knew something that we didn't know. Certainly pitched that way tonight. Count is 1-2 to Manny Ramirez. Cleveland just scratching their heads. We'll play again tomorrow with Steve Carsey, 9-1. Pitched very well in a start over the weekend. Going up against Mike Morgan, who's won 12 games for Texas, and one of the more surprising pitching performances that have been excellent this year.
Well, this is amazing tonight, the job that Burkett has done, shutting down a tremendous offense. Sure, the Cleveland Indians are banged up a little bit. Travis Fryman's not at third. Sandy Alomar's not behind home plate. Kenny Lofton not in center field. But this is still a tough lineup to shut down, and Burkett has dominated them thus far tonight.
Except for a couple walks in the second inning, nobody else walked. And this is a guy with the Giants that at one point faced 124 straight batters without a walk. And I mean, you can respect that. He had that sort of control tonight, except for that one inning when he got away from him with the 2 out and nobody on. This is the John Burkett that we saw in the early 90s. You can be heroes at least just for one day.
Only 2 complete games all year long thrown against the Cleveland Indians.
You look at the scores and the updates. Mets, Padres, most of you will see next. Some will see Cubs at the Diamondbacks. Bennis pitching for Arizona. Yoshi going for the Mets tonight. Mets begin this game a half a game ahead of Atlanta, who lost today at Colorado, 4-1.
It's been a long time since the Atlanta Braves have found themselves anywhere but in first place in the month of August.
Maybe good for them in the end, although not knowing how it's going to turn out, it's not good at this particular moment. We had them last week with Houston, who also obviously were in a dogfight, which they were not last year. Did he go? Yes, he did. His longest outing of the year, 8 innings, his season high in strikeouts with 8 Ks. Shake his hand. Maybe we'll see him in the ninth. What they have seen here, but hey, it's a night at the ball. Night. I didn't sit in seats like that when I went to games. Little League World Series, always one of our favorite events. Tomorrow night on ESPN2 from Giamatti Field in Bristol, Connecticut at 8 Eastern. About 1.5 miles from our studios, the Eastern Regional Final. At 10 p.m., Western Regional Final from San Bernardino, California. The winners move on to Williamsport, PA. Play starts this Sunday. We'll have most of the action for you on ESPN and ESPN2, and then the final on ABC next Saturday, the 28th of August. That's always so much fun.
Remember Sean Burroughs dominating that Little League World Series? Jeff Burroughs' son, former MVP with the Texas Rangers.
Here's the one that I like as we play the 9th inning here with Zeal, Stevens, and Clayton. With Haney continuing here in the 9th. There's a nice, smooth, easy throw from Vizquel. Zeal is gone. Billy, what do you have?
All right, Chris, Andy Pettit's been a new man since he wasn't traded, going for his 4th straight win against KC tonight. Tino the field to Derek Jeter, who throws it away, and the run scores on the play, and that's the only run of the game. KC scoring in the 8th, lead at 1-0.
But Pettit, there's no question the Yankees did the right thing by not trading him. I know there was cause in New York. It's what have you done lately? Guys pitched some awfully big games in some awfully big situations and pitching well tonight, although on the short end of it. Lee Stevens is 2 for 3 tonight. Texas has 9 hits. With their 6 runs. Cleveland won 5-0. Swings through it in this first 3 games of the 4-game series. 34-10 in runs, hits almost double, home runs 10-1. Texas hitting .367 in this series. Is Bob Feller available tomorrow? You know what he is. Carsey 9-1 goes tomorrow.
And how much worse could it get for the Cleveland Indians? Batting practice was supposed to end tonight for the Texas Rangers. It's 6:15. It hadn't ended yet.
So Stevens is gone. Now, I got a question for you. At the end of the 6th inning, here was the handshake, Johnny Oates and John Burkett. Here at the end of the 8th inning, Johnny Oates and John Burkett. Now, is there like a sign? Is that like third base coaches' signs? Like it's a different way?
Oh, you get superstitious. Even managers are that way. Hey, he's been successful. A 0 in the 7th, a 0 in the 8th. Let's try it again. There's also been activity in the Rangers bullpen. So maybe he just keeps the whole thing going right now. I would imagine, as I said, after 6, this is the end of the night. It will affect him in his next start if he continues to go back out there.
Now let him go. He gets one guy gets on, we'll see it. But I mean, if he gets the first down, let him go.
Here comes that giant in you again.
Yeah,
Here it comes. Here.
They're going to play it here tomorrow night. They don't have a day off this week. Then they go home. Actually, Texas in an interesting run here. Home to Boston next, then home to the Yankees, then at Toronto. So they play a run of the contenders. Mike Hargrove's club in the middle of July after the All-Star break had a 9-10 run when they were lost 9 of 10. Swept by the Yankees in Toronto, but they won 6 going into this. 6 in a row going into it. See, it's hard to tell. Texas came to town meaning some business. That's for darn sure.
Well, with the White Sox losing again tonight, they could still find themselves with a 16-game lead. Not a whole lot of concern on their part as far as the playoffs are concerned, just who they're going to play and how many home games they're going to have.
Tomey keeps the ball in front of him as he should. Oh, good wheels there by Royce Clayton, but Haney gets over in time, and the Indians have their last shot. Coming out? Nope.
My
Bye. After 8 great innings from John Burkett, 118 pitches, gave up just the 1 run in the 6th inning on 5 hits. Here's his line with a season-high 8 strikeouts and a season-high 8 innings pitched. He was fabulous.
Well, both of those 8s are really surprising, probably more so to Johnny Oates than they are to us. Just not expected out of a guy that was 3-6 with an ERA of 6.3 coming into the game. But his location was right where he wanted. He got his off-speed pitches over when he was behind in the count, and his defense was terrific for him all night.
So John Burkett looks to win for this the 4th time all year. And I would say that Texas all of a sudden is looking forward to his next start. We bring in the closer for the Texas Rangers, John Teenage Wetland, with 33 saves, 2nd in the American League. And you can see the numbers, almost as many strikeouts as innings pitched. His ERA is not close to what Wetland's ERA has been in some of his great years. However, I asked Johnny Oates about it, and he said a lot of it is he's learned to pitch. That doesn't mean you he said with a 2-run lead, he doesn't walk anyone, and he's given up some solo bombs. He quickly pointed out that Jim Palmer, Catfish Hunter, you guys, Don Sutton, 3 guys in the Hall of Fame who specialized in making sure we don't walk anyone, but we'll give up solo home runs. McLemore is, he almost turned it. I thought there was no way, but he had a shot. Justice, with all the injuries, doesn't run as well as he certainly did, but he's aboard.
Couple of things going against McLemore right there. He's got to play deep because of the power and pull hitting of Dave Justice. A long ways for him to run. He's got to field it flawlessly, make the exchange, and throw at the same time. Mac not able to do that. Another base hit for Dave Justice tonight, his second of the evening.
Not a save situation for John Wetland, but with the way the games have gone the last 2 nights, and the game before that was a 10-0 win behind Loaiza on Sunday, he hadn't pitched for a long time.
Boomer, we've seen a lot of times the intensity of a closer in these situations not the same as it is when they come in with the game on the line. How many times do they come out there just to get some work, and the next thing you know, they've thrown 25, 30 pitches?
One and one to Jim Thome, who is 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts tonight. You hear what I hear from the outfield?
I remember that drum.
John Adams with the drum. He used to be like the only person in the outfield at Municipal, right?
Oh, yeah.
Still banging the drums.
Kind of hard to hear with 44,000 people to start the game with.
Thome to right field. Gonzalez is back. He'll play it off the base of the wall. Thome with the club down by 5. Won't even chance going for 2, which, by the way, that was a hell of a throw by Gonzalez, but he would have been out. The Indians have runners at the corners with none out. So, hold on.
Thome finally gets a fastball in the strike zone that he can handle. Burkett really had his number tonight. A lot of off-speed stuff. Struck him out twice. Got an easy ground ball to the first baseman in Thome's first at bat. Now we see that power that we've grown to know from Jim Thome.
Richie Sexton 1 for 3. You tune in late. Rangers got a run in the first on a fielder's choice by Juan Gonzalez, and then it was Burkett against Nagy. A 1-0 game until the bottom of the 6th when Cleveland tied it on a single by Manny Ramirez, his major league leading 123rd RBI. But Texas then got their hitting shoes on as they've had this series. Single to Greer, double to Gonzalez, 3-run homer to Palmeiro, 4-1. Single to Zeal, a fielder's choice Stevens, and a home run by Clayton, 6-1. Meanwhile, John Burkett might have taken a seat. He ended up pitching the 7th and the 8th. That's where we stand if you just tuned in. Best outing of the year by far for John Burkett from New Brighton, Pennsylvania. A 3-hour ride from here outside of Pittsburgh. And Sexton swings and misses at a high, hard cheese from Wetland.
Well, the youngster's got a few holes. Wetland painted the outside corner with the first 2 strikes. Now watch him expand the strike zone. This was by design right here. He knew the big swing of Richie Sexton. He knew even with 2 strikes, he wasn't going to cut down that swing. That good fastball right up in his eyes, that one that you think you can get to, but you can't. You see it so well, though. I mean, it's right there. I can get that. Oh.
Missed the news earlier this week. You're not looking at a time warp. That is Carlos Baerga back with the Indians. 2 for 4 the first game. 1 for 4 yesterday with a homer. 0 for 2 thus far tonight playing third base. Carlos and Robbie Alomar, youngsters in the Padres system, along with Sandy Alomar. So they're all reunited this year here in Cleveland. About 10 years after. Clayton steps on second, over to Stevens. And the double play is completed, and John Burkett and the Texas Rangers have quelled the Indians, winning by the count of 6-1, and the Rangers have taken the first 3 of this 4-game set in a battle between the AL West leaders and the AL Central leaders. I want to thank everybody with our Wednesday night baseball crew. We hope you've enjoyed the sights and sounds here from the Jake and Rick Sutcliffe. I really enjoyed working with you. I was looking forward to it. We hope we do it again really soon.
It's been an honor.
That's it from Cleveland with the final Texas 6 and Cleveland 1.